You're listening to Last Word Radio, where you get the last word.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. This is February the 24th, 2020, trade deadline day. With you today is myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick.
Holy moly, Carl. What a day it's been. What a week it's been.
What a week it has been as well. I was genuinely concerned. We've got a lot to get to this week, Nick. There have been a plethora of trades, more so than I expected would happen.
First of all, nice use of the word plethora.
You're welcome.
Second of all, yes, there have been. And I'm sure everyone at Sportsnet and TSN is so happy with how their day went.
Yeah, they finally had some content. We will get to all that, but I was concerned about something else. Not that we wouldn't have stuff to talk about, because we would have trades, we would have the elimination station, all these things that we would still have stuff to talk about. But I was concerned, Nick, because you are coming to us live on location from what only can look like Blue Jays spring training.
That's right. I'm currently just outside of Tampa, Florida, enjoying the sun.
And so, I was concerned. I didn't know if you would be able to make it back. I didn't know what would happen. And we started to have to put into place our emergency backup podcaster protocol. And my biggest concern would be if that emergency backup would be better than you. Because we've seen that. We've seen that being a trend that could have been an issue. We
know it's a thing now, right?
Yeah.
Starting goalies everywhere, starting podcasters everywhere are now, on top of their game.
Right. You cannot think getting Wally pipped is even more of an issue when you're pulling a 42-year-old off the streets.
That's right. And when you're live on the airs, you never know. I don't know where I'm going with that, but I really wanted to work that pun in there.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
What a thing, though. I appreciate that in the middle of trade deadline, we get a crisis in Toronto, the biggest of identity crisis, when your own practice goalie beats you in a game.
Not even just the practice. It gets better. He drives the Zamboni for their farm team.
There could not have been a better way that went down.
Oh, my God. It's so beautiful. What a story. The guy had Leafs gear everywhere.
Yeah. He wore Marley's gear to beat the Leafs with. They just shoved a Canes jersey on top of his Marley's gear and was like, have at her.
Go get him, bud.
Yeah. After the game, and I didn't see how it turned out, but I mostly because I think that they were afraid to do it. But I love that after the game, it was like, oh yeah, I'm practicing against these guys tomorrow. I'm going to bring the game puck. Just
yeah, right.
The hardest of trolls. I'm like, you know what? Maybe read the room before you do that one.
Make sure you watch that clip of Kyle Dubas exiting his press box.
Yeah.
After the 6th goal went in.
Yeah. Well, luckily, Nick, we did not have to come to those situations. You are here. We are here. We are going to try to get through as many as possible. Here's what's happening today. We are going to go through almost every trade that's happened this week. Nick and I are each going to give it a rating out of 10 on how interesting this trade is. If it gets a total score of more than 10, we'll talk about it. If not,
good.
We'll pass.
I like it. I like how subjective it is. So we really only get to talk about what we want.
Well, because there was a lot of moves. There were 32 trades today alone, Nick.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And in an hour-long show, we do not have time to talk about that, to talk about emergency backup goalies, and the non-moves, right? Like Chris Kreider didn't get traded, signed a big old deal. We've got more contracts handed out to talk about. So let's start there. Before we get to any of that, let's get the business out of the way. ATB is a fantastic supporter of the Alberta Podcast Network. And if you are happy with the moves your team made today, if you thought, you know what, those moves were money, you should start thinking about your money too and go to atb.com and switch your bank to them. They are a fantastic place where you can save money. They also support the community, support hockey, both grassroots and the pros. So head on over there, atb.com. If you want to know what they do for hockey, atb.com/hockey. Ready, Nick?
I'm ready, but I just have to say, the way you tie in hockey to the ads is so good. And I'm on a different mic, so I don't know if people can hear me giggling right now, but I normally giggle through your ads.
I mean, you can read ads, but in the same reason that people need to stay to the end of our shows to hear you sing a song every single week, you should listen to the ads to find out how is Carl going to try to make this a seamless transition.
Yeah, both are made up on the spot.
Yeah, there's zero prep in those. I give you get slightly more time to prep for the song.
True enough.
Like 10 seconds more, like the slightest of amounts. All right,
okay,
Nick,
there's a lot of trades. Let's do this.
let's go. First trade of the week happened. You're pulling out like what only looks like, is that your passport? Are you ready?
No, this is my notebook that I never use, but since we're talking about the song now, I'm going to start writing words down that could rhyme.
So Nick is fully invested in all this trade talk. Let's see, Nick. First trade. What rhymes with Tyler Toffoli?
Nothing.
Okay, he's not going to be in the
nothing.
song.
No, absolutely not. I've had no prep time for Tyler Toffoli.
Well, here's what happened, Nick. Last week we hung up the phone on the old podcast machine. Tyler Toffoli traded to the Vancouver Canucks. I give that like a 7, more so because it was so far out. What do you give it?
I'd give it pretty high too. I'd give it like a 7.
All right,
6
we're
maybe.
talking Tyler Toffoli.
Let's talk about it because I like this for the Canucks. I like that the Canucks are just like, you know what? We're in a playoff spot. Let's do it.
Absolutely, and they should be, right? With what they have with some of these young guys. You see this with so many teams. You know, the Leafs are a great example, and we'll get to their moves later.
Maybe
there's one trade that I saw was a very fun. I saw a trade happen. I was like, wait, the Leafs were in that trade? But they've got Elias Pettersson on his entry-level deal, and you have to take advantage of that. Sure, they don't have a lot of other great contracts, but when you have one of the top players, especially top young players in the game, on his entry-level deal, you have to take advantage of that, and the Canucks are.
Yeah, totally agree. And Tyler Toffoli, I'm just pulling up his page right now. He's in the last year of his deal, so it's pretty low risk for the Canucks to bring him on, and I don't think they really gave up much for him.
They gave up, so prospect-wise, not a lot. They did give up a second-round pick, and the Canucks are, after this, they gave up a first in the JT Miller trade, and now a second in this trade. So they are without a first and a second in this year's draft.
But who cares? You're going to the playoffs.
You make the playoffs when I don't think many of us were expecting. I'm not sure the Canucks were expecting to be able to do what they're doing this year. Ride it while you can, and definitely don't blame for that.
I actually called it in our preseason previews. Canucks were going to make the playoffs. I'd like that back on the record, please.
I think what I said was nobody expected them to be there. So, all right, Nick. Dylan DeMello to the Winnipeg Jets. Like a 5.
I'd go like below 5, like a 4.
Sorry,
or
Dylan.
3.
Brenden Dillon from San Jose to Washington.
This one I would rate high. I'd give this one like a 7.
I was going to say a 5, but it passes. Why are you so into this one?
Because it's the start of the rest of the Sharks deadline season, which I think was really interesting. And it seems to me like they've decided they're out. Give us the picks. Let's start rebuilding.
Absolutely. Right. Well, they needed to. They don't even have their pick right now.
But you don't see you don't see a lot of teams do that after the playoff runs that they've had the last few years.
Fair. Yeah.
Normally it takes a little bit of losing before they do it. I think it's pretty bold of the Sharks to, I mean, look, it's obvious they're not in a good spot, but I think it's pretty bold of them at this point to be like, yeah, it's not working. Here's Brenden Dillon. Give us picks.
Right. Yeah, I agree. They figured out that there are things that need to go. Obviously, Brenden Dillon are unrestricted free agent at the end of the season, so for them to move him, they figured he's gone anyways. They need to kind of fix some things there, which is quite obvious. So
yeah, he's certainly not having the season he was hoping for.
No, and to get a second and a third is pretty good for Brenden Dillon.
Yeah, I agree.
Next up, one that I will rank, I'll go into this saying it's already a 6, Marco Scandella to the Blues from the Canadiens.
5. I kind of nothing this one, but it does pass.
It does pass the old smell test.
Okay, we can call it that.
Well, I guess write that in the notebook, Nick. The smell test. There's so many words that rhyme with both smell and test. You're welcome.
It's so true.
I think of this because of what, Scandella not having a fantastic season, but with what Montreal was able to get. And in the same way that you had that same thought about the Sharks, the Canadiens are a team that managed to do a fair amount this week with not giving up that much. And so that's kind of, as a collective whole, this is one that stands out to me because, getting back a second and a fourth in this deal is one that I'm pretty impressed with.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, obviously the Blues are getting ready, getting geared up for their run again this year, but Marc Bergevin, I find, is always pretty aggressive on the trade block, and he got a good return here, I think. And this is the trade where you start to see what the market is being set at. Like, I don't know. I think a second-round pick is a little high for Marco Scandella, but good for Bergevin for pulling that out.
Well, and we saw that defenders and forwards had a much different price tag this deadline.
That's right.
We'll talk later, right? The Dylan DeMello trade was not interesting enough, but he still netted a third. And there are for sure forwards that we're going to be talking about that netted a third or worse that were on the move. So definitely some differing values here at the deadline. And
absolutely,
next up, a prime example of this, because you talk about the Blues setting that price tag. Next up, moved from the Los Angeles Kings to the Vegas Golden Knights, Alec, don't call me Alex, Martinez.
It's probably his real nickname. I'd rate this one pretty high. I almost just wanted to start talking about it. I'd put this at like 7-ish.
Yeah, I would say 7, even an 8. Alec Martinez, a good defenseman.
Yeah. And they got a good price for him, 2 second-round picks. Now, this one's interesting to me because he has another year left on his deal. So it's not a true rental.
It's not a rental at all. And he has been, I don't know if you've seen Nick, on fire in Las Vegas. Thus far in 3 games.
In Las Vegas? Oh, yeah, sorry. I was thinking he got traded today, but that's not true.
2 goals, 2 assists in 3 games for the Knights.
It's pretty good. He looks like he's been all over the scoreboard.
Yeah. And honestly, with that extra year, love this for Vegas. A team that was very busy this week. A fantastic deal. To give up, if you look at Scandella cost a second and a fourth.
Yeah.
That difference between that fourth and this second for Martinez, who is better.
Yeah.
And an extra year. it should have been higher price.
I totally agree. I think it was a steal, especially for his cap hit too, right? Like he's on a pretty decent deal.
$4 million, for another year for what he brings.
Yeah,
definitely a win for the Vegas Golden Knights.
It's good.
Let's see. Well, I'm gonna go through. If it's traded for future considerations, I'm not gonna put it on our list.
10. I'm just kidding.
All right, this brings us to this. That was Friday's trade. The Anaheim Ducks pulled off one that I was surprised by. This they move Ondrej Kase, a name that I practiced real hard to say. I think it's Kase, is it not? This is not the first
Kase. I don't know.
This is not the first name that was traded today that we will be having this conversation about.
Hey, do you want to play a quick game of where's he from?
Absolutely.
Do you know where he's from already?
No.
Okay. I've got it up. Where is Ondrej Kase from?
Does it also have the pronunciation of his name? Or
no,
you're just
no, it doesn't.
You're just going to keep.
I'm just going to assume you're right.
Switching. Ondrej Kase, I will say, is from Slovakia.
He is from the Czech Republic.
He was one of those.
Yeah.
Should have gone Czech Republic. They got all the good hockey players in the divorce.
You can get you can get the next one.
Well, he was traded to the Boston Bruins. In return, the Ducks got a first-round pick, David Backes, and Axel Anderson, noteworthy for the name alone.
Absolutely. What a great name, right? Axel Anderson.
No one's questioning. How do you say Axel Anderson?
No. And I feel like that one's pretty easy to figure out where he's from. I'd say Finland.
Sweden. I would say Sweden. And the verdict is Sweden.
Well, see, I told you you'd get the next one.
I'm right back. Can't keep a guy down.
So the cost to get rid of David Backes was a first-round pick.
I guess this passes our test, right? This is an interesting trade.
Absolutely.
Here's the thing. This trade, another trade that the selling team in a deadline where I felt was a seller's market. The selling team did a very bad job. If this was a trade, right? David Backes, not good, right? Not playing with the Bruins.
Yeah.
This is his chance at a bounce back. The price just earlier this year to sell Patrick Marleau's contract and get out from under it was a first-round pick. So they gave a first-round pick and David Backes and got back an actual good player.
Yeah.
Like, Kase is a good middle six player for the Bruins. It is insane to me that they were able to salary dump Backes while also getting back Kase in this deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure his injury history has hurt his value a lot because I think he's had some concussion issues over the last couple of years. But yeah, you're right. How do you get that good of a player out of dumping a salary and losing your first round pick? I do that deal every day if I'm Boston.
Yeah, and I don't think twice, and I laugh because I fleeced them.
Absolutely. And Anaheim's just, I don't know, who knows? They're aiming for oldest average age in the league, I guess.
they're gonna get there, right?
Yeah.
David Backes still has one more year left on his deal. So we'll see if he, I think he's gonna get a shot with his team to try to show up.
He'll play more, I think.
Yeah.
Than he did in
Absolutely.
Boston.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Because Boston wasn't using him. So for him, it's great. the Ducks get a first-round pick for a guy that, like you said, the injury history, and they need to start moving out some pieces and to get some of that. So, I'm all right with it. They've clearly set that next year is also a full-on tank year. So Anaheim fans, I'm sorry. Southern California hockey is going to have another very bad year next year.
Welcome to Detroit hockey.
I would say no. I would say it's better than Detroit hockey because neither of those teams are currently eliminated, and all the goalies in Southern California have more wins than a Zamboni driver this year. So
now I'm sad.
Look what I've done. Let's move on. Nick.
Yes, let's.
Cody Eakin to the Winnipeg Jets from the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yawn 2.
I call this like a 4. Pass. Ilya Kovalchuk to the Washington Capitals from Montreal.
Yes, let's talk about this because
that you're like, I give this an 11 out of 10. We're talking about it. I don't care.
Yes, absolutely. Because we talked about it last week, and I was like, I wouldn't trade for Kovalchuk, and you were like, I would, and obviously the Washington Capitals would. Good for the Canadians. Got a 3rd-round pick for him.
Yeah.
You think he was worth more? That was my initial question. Was like, should they have gotten a 2nd?
Maybe. Well, like the Capitals didn't have a 2nd, I don't believe. I mean, no, because the one they gave up was the one that they got from Colorado. Did the Capitals have an extra 2nd round? They did not. That pick was traded sometime else. We'll find out when that pick was traded.
I actually think that the 3rd, that's a good return for Kovalchuk, a 3rd-round pick. I don't think it should have been higher.
No, and I find it very interesting. I mean, the person most excited about this trade, other than Ilya Kovalchuk, was Alexander Ovechkin.
Yeah, right.
He was like, that's how 3 minutes after the trade broke, he was on Instagram posting about it. Like, this guy was, knew it was happening, right? Connected, as he should be. But man, he's pumped. He's ready to have his guy there.
Yeah, they got quite a few Russians on that Caps team. It'll be interesting to see how they do. Both them and the Penguins, I think, it's going to be an interesting playoffs for them. See how far they can push. And both of them are geared up today to make that push.
Yeah, this day, this week, the playoff teams, the teams firmly in the playoff spot, that will be the theme of this week. Because, Nick, we are 20 odd minutes into this show, and we are finally up to today, in which there are 32 trades to go through.
Oh, I guess that this first trade actually technically happened today.
Yeah, I mean, I woke up to it.
Yeah,
I don't know, and I'm have the time zone advantage, so it is. And this was one that, I think for us, I have this at an 8.
Yeah, I'd rate this one pretty high. I'm pretty invested in this one.
Yeah, so Mike Green to Edmonton for Kyle Brodziak and a 4th. Ken Holland loves him some Mike Green.
Yeah. You know what, though? It's not a bad acquisition for the Oilers. He'll help them on the power play. He won't have to play the big minutes that he's playing in Detroit. Like Mike Green, the Mike Green of today is not the Mike Green of his Washington Capital days. He's just not. He's not as good of a defenseman. But he's great on the power play. He has a lot of experience. He'll be great in the room. Everybody loves him in the room. And so what? You give up a 4th-round pick at worst for him. A 3rd round at worst.
Yeah.
Which, it's going to be a 4th. The conditions on this pick are ridiculous. If Edmonton advances to the conference final and Green plays in 50% of the games, Neither of those things are very likely. So it's a 4th round pick.
Right. I mean, if the Oilers make the conference finals, it is irrelevant to them that they've upgraded this from a 4th to a 3rd.
Who cares at that point, right?
Yeah, they should have just, we'll trade you all of our picks ever if we make the Stanley Cup. If we win the Stanley Cup, you get them all.
Absolutely.
Congratulations, Detroit.
And yeah. I'm just glad that after the chatter over the last 2 trade deadlines, Mike Green was actually traded this time.
It was nice that he stayed healthy enough to be tradable at the deadline. Because I think last year he would have been, if not for injury.
Totally. And they pulled him out of the lineup last night. They were playing a game last night. They pulled him out 7 minutes before warm-up.
I watched that game. Didn't notice.
I don't know why you'd watch that game. It's terrible. Just terrible hockey.
It was hometown hockey, Nick. That's why.
That's true. And you know where it was last night? I didn't get a chance to watch it, but you know where it was? LaSalle, Ontario. That's where my mom lives.
Oh, nice. I learned last night that LaSalle, not in Quebec.
Well, there you go.
Turns out it's in Ontario. And if people think, you know what, Carl doesn't know a lot about American geography. No, I don't know a lot about Canadian geography sometimes either.
Oh, yeah. It's geography in general.
You give me a French-sounding name, and I'm going to assume it's in Quebec.
That's fair.
Well, Nick, the next trade on the docket also involves one of our teams, Vladislav Namestnikov to the Colorado Avalanche. And even myself, I rank this as 6.
Not that interested, eh? Well, I still rated it over 5, so we're going to talk about it quickly.
Okay. I'm very happy to get this trade. The fact that he was traded earlier this year from the Rangers to the Sens for a 4th round pick, and the Sens couldn't get a better value. They couldn't flip him for something better at the deadline. You knew he was going to be on the move. His deal is done at the end of this year. I was very grateful that the Avalanche were able to get him, especially with the amount of injuries they have right now. Mikko Rantanen out, Nazem Kadri out. This was a big win.
I remember when the Sens traded for him.
I take it back.
Go ahead.
I take it back. Not a big win, just a win.
Okay. It was, fair enough. I'm glad you corrected that. But I remember when the Sens traded for him, I remember saying, this is a great deal for the Sens. They didn't have to give up much for this guy. And I feel the same thing for the Avalanche. I can't believe the Senators settled on a 4th round pick for him. Good for them. Good for the Avs, I mean.
And with them giving up like their 4th and then getting the Avs, they actually moved down in the draft to get him. So good on you, Senators. All right, this next one, Nick. This one caught me real off guard. And not because he moved. The Sens were at it again. J.G. Pageau to the Islanders for a 1st, a 2nd, and a 3rd. What do they know about J.G. Pageau that I do not?
Holy moly, right? What are you doing, Lou? Crazy. By the way, I rate this one like a 7.
Yeah, this was like an 8, 9. This was one of the most interesting deals of the day for me.
Why did they do it? That's an overpayment for Pageau.
Well, so one thing is they did also get a contract extension out of it. So this is not a rental. They now have him for 6 more years at $5 million a season.
Yeah, but you could have waited till the end of the year to do that.
You could have. And
like,
you probably didn't have to give him...
Like, is it worth bringing him on for 2 months and for the playoffs, basically, and giving up a 1st, 2nd, 3rd round pick over the next, 3 years?
No.
I don't think so.
Here's the other thing. He's not very good.
Yeah.
J.G. Pageau
he's the best player on the
24
Senators,
goals this season. Correct. So here are the numbers that tell me that I do not want any part of him. Way number 1. He has 7 special teams goals this year. Of his 24, 7 are special teams. 4 on the power play, 3 shorthanded. He has historically been quite good scoring shorthanded goals, and we've seen it repeatedly, right? There was one year he had 7. That's good. The most that any other Islander player has at all is 4. When he moves into this Islanders system, he's not suddenly going to change the way that they play. They do not play a run and gun, high scoring system where that's going to be a thing that he'll have the opportunity to do. So you're not even going to use that skill set as much as you could in, say, in Ottawa. He's also shooting 18% this year. 8% higher than his career average.
Yikes.
This is a 20-goal scorer that the Islanders gave up a first, a second, and not likely the third. So a first and a second. The third is likely the third. The third is conditional on them winning the Stanley Cup. Not sure that's happening, but maybe. So a first, a second, a third, and are paying $5 million a year for 6 years for, to me, who is a 20-goal scorer.
Yeah. That was a great assessment. You laid it out perfectly. Makes no sense to me.
Well, let's move on to the next one. Vincent Trocheck.
Oh boy, that's a big one. This is like a 9. This is a 9.
I only have to give it a 2, but I'm giving it an 8.
Yeah.
Hurricanes were busy.
Did you expect this one? Hurricanes were busy. They were probably the most exciting team today. And they're going for it.
I mean, they're riding high. They're riding that David Ayres hide, Nick. And
like, what are they waiting for? They should just sign him to a contract.
I mean, they flew him out there. They're selling his jerseys. It's the fever is in the airs, to steal your joke from earlier. So
there you go.
But the price for this was the very interesting package. What stood out to it about you?
I didn't think they paid much for him. I mean, I guess my thoughts were more on the Panthers side. Was that this is one of your 3 or 4 best players, and you're bringing in Erik Haula and who I don't even recognize. Well, I know Walmart, but I don't recognize these other names.
Here's the other side of it. Keep going.
Well, I don't know if these are high-rated prospects or not. I mean, I'm pretty in tune with hockey, so if I don't recognize these names, I'm thinking probably not as highly rated as you should get for Vincent Trocheck. But I think from the Canes side, he adds a lot of depth to their offensive lines.
Absolutely. I'm with you. From this prospect perspective, we've got a 21-year-old with a career 44 games in the AHL. Nothing to get excited about there. You've got a 23-year-old with a total of 52 games in the AHL, former 6th-round pick. Nothing to get excited about there. Lucas Wallmark, whose contract is up at the end of this year, and Erik Haula, whose contract is up at the end of this year. This is the biggest, weirdest, just dump of Vincent Trocheck and getting nothing in return.
Like, what are they? And they're chasing a playoff spot.
Yeah.
I don't understand the line of thinking here.
Like, they are literally mere points back of a team that lost to a Zamboni driver this weekend, Nick.
Well, that's the other thing. They're competing with them for a playoff spot.
right? Like the Hurricanes hold that last wild card spot. The Panthers are 4 points back of them. They are only 2 points back of the Leafs. Why?
I don't know. And Trocheck's going to be awesome on this Capitals team.
He actually went to the Hurricanes, though.
The Hurricanes team. Man, that's twice I've almost said Capitals.
You really want
weird.
the Caps to get a lot of players.
That's weird.
Yeah, he's going to be great. And this is a Hurricanes team with the necessary cap space to make that move. Trocheck 2 more years after this, so he's going to be there in Carolina for a bit.
Yeah. Good for them. I like that deal for the Canes.
Love that deal for them. Next up, Nate Thompson for a 5th. One. Here's next. Colorado acquires Michael Hutchinson for Calle Rosen. That's a 2.
Okay, thank you. I was going to say, how much do we have to talk about this one? I'd give that one a 1 as well.
Patrick Marleau to not the Hurricanes. Look, you've got me doing the thing, Nick. Patrick Marleau went to the Penguins in exchange for a 3rd round pick. I call that a 6.
I was going to give it a 7.
Okay, well, there we go. Why are you so into this?
Because I think it's great that the Leafs paid more to get rid of him than the Penguins paid to acquire him.
Yeah. I mean, it's a different value, right? It's not full season price. It's like entry-level value, Patrick Marleau.
Absolutely. And I actually think the Penguins overpaid for him.
Well, because he hasn't been good.
He hasn't even played a whole season.
Yeah.
Didn't he just sign in like November or December?
He signed late, yeah. 10 and 10.
I don't like. What does he bring? What does he bring to the table here? Mentorship. He's essentially going to be a player coach without the title, which is just not fair.
Robbing all of us. And this is not a team that needs. This is not a team that needs veteran presence.
Yeah, that's what I don't get this for the Penguins.
The only reason, like, I see him filling, like, the last few years, Matt Cook was that like 4th line center guy that just was there and made league minimum, but showed up, and they were like, "Hey, you might win a Stanley Cup with us, Matt." And so he came and played. That's how I see Patrick Marleau fitting into this team.
But why be so nice to, like, I get it. You want to give the guy a cup, but why would you give up a 3rd round pick to do that?
Let's play this game, Nick. Not the game of where's Patrick Marleau from. We know that one.
Yes, we do.
I would guess Patrick Marleau is from Sault Ste. Marie. Where would you guess he's from?
You think he's from way out there? No, I think he's from Patrick Marleau.
I could not have been more wrong.
He's probably from somewhere way more urban, right? Like he's from like a Peterborough.
He is from Aneroid, Saskatchewan.
Oh, wow. I went Ontario too.
Yeah.
Briefly, I was like, should I go BC? And I didn't.
Aneroid has a 2016 population of 50. You could not get less urban than Aneroid, Saskatchewan.
That's beautiful.
Here's the game that I want to play, though. These are players who were traded for a 3rd round pick today or this week. Okay. Patrick Marleau or Ilya Kovalchuk.
I'd take Covey.
I probably would too. Let's see. Who else was traded for a 3rd? That's not the word I'm looking for. 3rd. Patrick Marleau. That's a defenseman. I'm trying to play this game with forwards only. Turns out those are the only 2, Nick. So that's our game.
So those veterans who have had spotty couple years.
Those are the only 2 forwards traded straight up for a 3rd round pick. So that's our game. Congratulations, Kobe. You win.
Feel free to
Next
come on
up.
anytime and talk about your experience.
Next up, Wayne Simmons to the Buffalo Sabres from the New Jersey Devils.
Meh, a 3.
I was going to give it a 6, mostly because I don't understand why the Buffalo Sabres did this trade.
Like, why would they give up an asset?
Yeah, like we've got the Florida Panthers 2 points out of a playoff spot, giving away Vincent Trocheck, and the Sabres are like, let's get this rental in here for a piece.
Maybe they thought they could flip him again. I don't know.
Or like a extended tryout. But
maybe
there is a condition. They did only give up a 5th round pick, so it's not much. However, and I love that this was a condition that they had to make. If Wayne Simmons plays 10 games and the Sabres make the playoffs, this becomes a 4th round pick. So
it's a 5th.
Hope is not lost there. We've got let's just Derek Grant to the Flyers.
No.
No. Matthew Pekka. We'll skip that. Nick Ritchie for Danton Heinen.
This one's low on my list as well. 3.
I was going to give it a 4. Here we go, Nick. Andreas Athanasiou to the Edmonton Oilers for Sam Gagner and 2 second-round picks.
Okay. Objectively, this is an interesting trade, right? Like, objectively speaking, this is a big one. My bias isn't showing by giving this an 8.
It's an 8, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a lot of thoughts on this one. First of all, why are Steve Yzerman and Ken Holland only talking to each other?
I think Ken left his number for Steve when he left. He was like, well, might as well use it.
You destroyed the rest of the Rolodex where all the other GM numbers were. If you don't know what a Rolodex is, I can't help you. 2.
It just means you're under 25. So
yeah, exactly. 2. Why wasn't this part of the Mike Green deal? Like, why did they do 2 separate deals here? 3. This is a good deal for the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah.
They didn't give up much.
And Athanasiou RFA after this year, not signed, but still controllable by the Oilers.
Yep.
And Sam Gagner, I mean, you're just glad he's not on the team.
Like, there's a few pieces here, but the trade is really Athanasiou for 2 second-round picks.
Yes. Here's a game that I always find an interesting one to play. How old do you think Sam Gagner is?
Sam Gagner is like 32 years old.
He's 30. He is continually younger than I thought he was.
It feels like he's been around forever.
He has. And it feels like he's been terrible for forever. Like, it feels like he's that veteran that should be gone already. And then he's 30 years old. I'm like, interesting.
Poor guy. Remember when the Canucks were like, we feel bad for you. Just go play at home in Toronto. If we need you, we'll call you.
Yeah, exactly. So you're happy with this return for Athanasiou?
I think it could have been more. I think like Athanasiou's potential is very, very high. And I think he could have netted a first in a perfect world. However, Ken Holland is very familiar with Andreas Athanasiou. He drafted him. He developed him. And I think Ken Holland is familiar enough with Athanasiou's game to see the inconsistencies in it. He's already been through a negotiation with Athanasiou and his agent, Darren Ferris, which ended mid-October.
Which I'm sure he's thrilled to have to negotiate with him again. Right.
But all of these things end up hurting the value here. So you don't get your first, you get your second, and you get your second for giving what's going to be a top 6 forward on the Edmonton Oilers.
I think when you look at, the other trade that was 2 seconds, the Alec Martinez, and we see what the value of defensemen versus forwards was at this deadline, this seems in line. The Oilers will still have his services for next year. They don't know the price tag yet. I would say probably in the range. I mean, if JG Pageau is getting 5x6, they could certainly get him for, and there's no love loss, right? Athanasiou was not a big fan there. I would say in the range of $5 million. Does that sound like a reasonable number to start?
That's where he should land. Maybe 5.5. Yeah. Depends on the length.
Yeah. So it's, same money as Martinez, 4x2 versus 3 plus 5. I think that this is a very reasonable price. Could it have netted a first? Absolutely. Would I have been surprised and thought this deal was fair if it had been a first? Yes. I think my biggest thing is being able to make more Athanasiou jokes with him playing locally in Alberta. Is probably my biggest takeaway from this trade.
You'll get to see him a lot more now. I'm personally very excited to see him play on Connor McDavid's wing.
Is that where he's going to be slotting in?
He should. He's got the speed to keep up with him.
Absolutely, yeah. That would be great. All right, Nick. Edmonton at it again. Tyler Ennis from the Senators for a 5th.
I rate it pretty low, but this is a good pickup for Edmonton at a decent price.
I agree. Tyler Ennis, perennially underrated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's keep going. Nick Cousins for a 4th. I give that a 3.
Yeah, I give that a 2.
Christian Juice for Daniel Sprong.
I don't know much about either of these players, and the dollar signs are very low, so I'm going to give that a 2.
I'm going to give that a 3. That's an AHL deal, but two players that have had some significant plays there. Sonny Milano for Devon Shore. That's a solid 5.
Again, this is one where I don't know much about the players, so I was going to give it a 3 or a 4.
I just think Sonny Milano was at one point quite the highly touted prospect, and this kind of fully states where he's at.
Great name too.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got another great name coming up in this next trade we're going to talk about too. Barclay Goodrow and a 3rd-round pick for Anthony Greco and a 1st-round pick. Tampa giving up that first one.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I rated the other San Jose trade so high, because I think they're doing a good job at collecting picks right now.
Yeah, they got back the pick. Obviously, not going to be as high as their 1st-round pick, which they gave up for Erik Karlsson, but did get back into that 1st round. Collected a bunch of picks. A good day for San Jose. Yeah,
they did well overall.
Tampa gets Goodrow, a reasonably priced forward, right? Coming in pretty cheap.
Absolutely.
Adding to the pickup, the signing of Zach Bogosian of this weekend as well. Tampa, as expected, really just has to fill out their depth chart.
Yeah, absolutely. As they should be. Tampa's all in. They're probably going to win the cup.
If you had have told me, though, who would have been the first player to get traded for a 1st-round pick in our list of trades today, Barclay Goodrow would not have been anywhere on my board.
No, he was not the first. Come on. There was someone else, wasn't there? Man, maybe he was the first. That's crazy.
No, JG Pageau.
Yeah, there you go.
And Ondrej Kase. But on trade deadline, Pageau was the 3rd one this week. I wouldn't have had him on my board as 3rd either.
No, me neither.
All right, Nick. Eric Gustafsson to the Flames for a 3rd.
3.
I give it a 6. But
okay. Do you want to talk about it?
Okay. I just think it's interesting how little the Flames did and how their solution when they can't figure out how to score Like their scoring up and down has been lackluster. Eric Gustafsson, the defenseman from Chicago, is not what they needed.
Yeah, it is a weird trade, especially for an expiring contract.
Yeah. Next up, Hurricanes are at it again. Sami Vatanen from the Devils for Fredrik Claesson, Jani Kokkonen, and a fourth.
This is another good pickup for the Hurt. Oh, I forgot we have to rate it. 7.
7.
Excellent.
This is a really good pickup for the Hurricane, Nick. Continue.
I think so. Don't you think? They felt they needed the help on their blue line. I think I probably agreed with them. They want some more depth there. And they went out and got it for a decent price. I mean, the Devils obviously weren't using Vatanen to his best abilities. He's a good he's a solid defenseman. He's not a great defenseman. He's a solid defenseman.
He is like a good mid defenseman.
Absolutely. He'll do great in Carolina.
Especially when you're not asking him to play that top pairing time, and you can put him in a situation where he can excel, right? When you've got Brett Pesce who can take those, and Jacob Slavin who can take some of that pressure off of him, right? Jake Gardner, like they've got a good defense core. Dougie Hamilton.
Yeah.
He's the 5th best defenseman on that team. He's a very good 5th best defenseman.
Absolutely.
All right, Nick, here we finally get the Toronto Maple Leafs in a trade that I think is worth talking about.
How are you going to explain this one?
Well, see, this is what I was excited about because I saw the trade that went down, right? Malcolm Subban and a 2nd-round pick from Vegas, Robin Lehner to the Golden Knights. In the middle, Toronto retained salary. Toronto, the cap crunch team that they are, retained salary on Robin Lehner and got a 5th-round pick out of it. An unnecessary but great move by Kyle Dubas to just use his cap space and get a pick out of it. But
you might as well, right?
Yeah. Not surprised Robin Lehner on the move. His contract is expiring in Chicago. Tried to make a push for the playoffs, is not. I guess we should rank this. I give it a 7.
Yeah, I'd give this one an 8.
There we go. All right. Robin Lehner is quite good. Obviously, his performance last year on the island, still good in Chicago. And with Marc-Andre Fleury getting older by the minute, as we all are, Nick, Robin Lehner, good pickup.
That's right. Yeah, I agree. They upgraded their goalie situation. I think it's a great deal for them. And Malcolm Subban's okay.
Yeah, that's a good. Chicago gets a guy that they can start, right? They can play
Absolutely.
him. A 2nd-round pick is good for a guy that they weren't going to be keeping. Turns out the rental goalie market, unless your name's Michael Hutchinson, pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. And yet nobody called on Jonathan Bernier. What the heck, guys? It's okay. I think this is good for all parties. Toronto was a weird insert into this, but whatever, they can get their draft pick out of it. I think everybody comes out ahead on this one.
Absolutely. Next up is the Carolina Hurricanes. Another trade. Picking up Brady Skjei for a 1st-round pick from
You said
the New
that
York
name
Rangers. Right. I did. I know.
Yeah,
I'm very proud of myself.
It's our last trade of the day. It's a pretty big name. There's a 1st-round pick in play. I'd rate it an 8.
Yeah, same.
Another good pickup by the Hurricanes.
And for the Rangers, right? Like they kind of needed to continue to do something. They weren't not in playoff contention, and there was lots of talk about various things happening. For the Hurricanes, Skjei has 4 more years left on his deal. Far from a rental.
And now they have 6 top 4 defensemen.
I listed 5 defensemen earlier, and then they added Brady Skjei to that.
Yeah. It's a good pickup. They're ready, man. I'm excited for the Carolina Hurricanes rest of season and playoff run.
Absolutely. And their defense core is also locked up long times.
Yeah.
They've got Pesce, Gardner, Skjei, and Slavin, and Dougie Hamilton locked up for next year. Everyone on that list except for Hamilton locked up for 3 more years, rather. Sorry. That's their defense core. They've got it locked down. I'm a little surprised that the Rangers decided this was the expendable piece for them, though. Yeah,
I would agree with that. Because Brady Skjei was one of their better players.
Yeah.
In general, I think. Best defenseman, but better players.
Exactly. But now that gets them another pick in the first round for a team with some pretty good luck in the old draft department. So
yeah, no kidding.
We'll see what they end up doing this year. They, have so much flexibility. Was surprised that they didn't move Jesper Fast, a unrestricted free agent who, still on this team. But with the amount of pieces moving, obviously, they couldn't get anything for him, right? I would have been very happy with him on the Avalanche, but he's not. And that's it, Nick. We did it.
All the trades.
We officially, for the record, in what amounts to right now, I think about 55 minutes, if the clock is correct, touched on, almost every trade with our ranking system. But we did 16 trades, Nick, in 55 minutes.
Not bad, Carl.
Not bad. There were some contracts handed out too. Do we want to touch on those today, or do we want to move those and talk about those next week?
I think we can do some quick ones.
All right, because aside from Pageau, the big reason the Rangers did not jump into the trade market today was the fact that they handed out a big new contract to Mr. Christopher Kreider.
Yeah, $6.5 million AAV, which is a pretty good deal for Chris Kreider, I think.
I expected him to get.
Go ahead.
I expected him to get 7 a year, 7. He got 7 years, but I expected it to be 7 by 7. So this is smaller than I thought.
Which is only good for the Rangers, but he obviously feels like they're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, wants to stay. I do not. While I expected the price to be 7 by 7, I am not excited about what production 35-year-old Chris Kreider gives.
Yeah, that's the thing, though, right? If anything, this probably gives good insight into what they feel like their window is.
Yeah.
Right? They're probably looking at the next 3 to 4 years. They should have a pretty good shot here. And at that point, he'll be worth what they're paying him.
Fair, yeah. The other contract handed out today was Jacob Muzzin. He got a 4-year deal for 5.6 from the Leafs. This was the only move of note for the Toronto Maple Leafs today.
Surprisingly. Maybe? I don't know.
I think this was the right move.
Yeah.
And this is something maybe we can dive into more next week. But I like this deal.
It's a good deal. It's not. I'm surprised he took it. It's not a huge raise for him year over year. So I'm surprised he didn't push for more. But I think it's a great deal for the Leafs for what Muzzin brings to the table.
Absolutely. And his is a skill set that I don't expect to decline as strongly. This takes him to 36, and I think that should be fine.
Yeah, I think so too. It's good they didn't max him out at 41.
Yeah, that would be not good. Well, Nick, there it is. One thing of note, the elimination station skipped this week, as you may have noticed. It will be back next week. We'll be putting a team in there. However, we do still want to thank the official sponsor of the Elimination Station, Park Power, who we had to suck a little bit of power from the Elimination Station to power us through all these trades today, Nick.
I mean, so many of these teams made moves that, really put into question who's going to be in the playoffs. So we need a week to digest this.
It's true. And made moves that can electrify the fan bases, like Park Power can electrify your home. If you are looking for utilities in Alberta, you get to pick where you get your power, electricity from, and you should head to ParkPower.ca and find out if they are for you. Spoilers, they are. You head over there. They support local charities in and around your community, and you get to pick which one. Actually, when you switch to Park Power, you pick which charity you want them to support on your behalf, which is fantastic. So they literally are putting money into the community. They will likely save you money. They've got an easy-to-use calculator on there that can help you sort that out as well. ParkPower.ca. Nick, we'll be back next week where we'll return with the Elimination Station, talking about the fallout of all these trades that have happened. I mean, we got mere hours to digest all these trades, to figure out what's happening. With a little bit of time to let this breathe, we can talk about some of this. Maybe one question I did want to ask before we fully wrap this up, real quick, who do you think is the winner of trade deadline? Which team got out the best of the buyers?
The Carolina Hurricanes.
I would say them. My 1B would be the Edmonton Oilers. I really liked what they managed to pull off today.
Yeah, they did well.
So you can find us wherever you subscribe to podcasts. If this is your very first time listening, thank you. Welcome to our trade deadline special. We're back here every Monday night bringing you a brand new show. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, thefourthlinepodcast.com if you want some more information or to tune into some great writing, such as a piece this week by Mike Laybourne looking at the best people who should have been fired this year and somehow aren't. There's been a lot of people fired. He looks at who's next. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll be back next week.
Time for us to wrap up another Fourth Line show. I know what you're thinking. You don't want us to go. The trade deadline has now come and gone, and Steve Yzerman can still do no wrong.